So next we are going to learn the use of loops for doing some random experiment. Okay, so we are going to learn how to generate random numbers in Python programming. Okay, and then using that random numbers we are going to learn some examples regarding random experiment. Okay? Sometimes imitating a random experiment inside a program is very important. Okay, so we are going to learn how to generate random number and using them how to imitate a random experiment using Python program. Okay, so let's random number generation. Okay, so basically we are learning different applications of loops. Okay, so here also we are going to learn some applications of the loop where we are going to do some random experiment doing some average and all those things. So it will be clearer as we proceed. Okay. So let's take an example of rolling a die. Okay, suppose you are rolling a die say 10 times. So if you roll a die, what is going to be the output? The output can be either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6, right? Either one of these 6 outcome, right? But whatever is the outcome is unknown to you because it's a random experiment, right? You are throwing a die means it's a random experiment. The outcome can be any integer in between 1 to 6. All right, so let's start with a simple program of a rolling die experiment where I am going to roll a die 10 times and what is going to be the outcome. Let's print it. Okay, so here basically I need to generate a random number in between or random integer in between 1 to 6, right? So how to do this? First you need to import a function from the package random. Okay, from random import randint. Okay, you are importing this function from this random package. So basically I want to generate a random integer. Okay, I want to generate random integers in between 1 to 6. Yeah, so for that I need this randint function. Okay, so here I said that I will do the experiment 10 times. That means let's write a loop. So for I in range of say 10, I need to repeat this experiment 10 times. The outcome is any random number in between 1 to 6. So randint 1 to 6. Okay, this will generate a random integer in between 1 to 6. So I'm going to repeat this experiment 10 times. In each and every iteration it is going to generate a random integer in between 1 to 6. Okay, and then I'm going to print it. That's it. Okay, that is basically imitating a rolling a die experiment. All right, so let's run it. So you will see that the outcomes are this 5 2 2 1 4 3 4 1 6 1. Okay, and if you run it several different times it will generate different random numbers in between 1 to 6. So in this case, in this way you can basically imitate a random experiment. This is a very simple experiment, but we are going to learn more of such experiments. Clear? Okay, now I'm asking you to find out the probability that the outcome is 6. So I'm rolling a die. What is the probability that I will get a 6? From your simple statistics understanding, what is going to be the probability if I roll a die? What is going to be the probability that the outcome is 6? It is 1 by 6. Okay, all right, so let's see that using the programming whether we can find out that value. Okay, theoretically I know it is 1 by 6. Okay, so now I am trying to show you that using programming, using the Python programming, whether I can generate that number. So how to do this is pretty simple, right? What is probability? Probability means if I repeat an experiment infinite number of times, then the probability is equal to the ratio between the number of true outcomes divided by the number of all experiments, right? So true outcome by number of experiment, right? If I do it for a large number of experiment, if I roll a die almost infinite number of times, then the probability of finding a 6 is basically the number of times I found 6 divided by the number of experiments. Clear? Okay. So let's do the experiments. Let's do the same logic, or let's apply the same logic over here. I'm going to repeat this process several times. Okay, very large number of times, and every time it is going to generate a random number in between 1 and 6. I'm not printing it, and then I'm going to check if d is equal to 6 or not. If yes, then I need to initialize a counter to be 0. If it is true, that means if the event is true, then counter equal to counter plus 1. All right, and then at the end of the iteration, at the end of 10,000 iteration, I can calculate the probability, that the probability of finding a 6 is nothing but counter, that means number of times outcome is true, divided by the number of experiment, which is 10,000. Okay, that's it. So let's run it. The probability it is showing as 0.1718. The value of 1 by 6 is 0.1666. Okay, so this is close to, this is not exactly 0.1666, it is 1718, very close to that, right? If I repeat this experiment even more number of times, you will see you are getting even precise number, 1.67. okay, so 1.67 is so I need to increase the 0 over here also. So here you will get that 0.16912. So it is even closer to 0.16666. Okay, so if you increase the number of iteration, you will get even closer number. Okay. So you will see 0.166. Okay, so you are getting even closer number, and as it will approach to infinity, you will get exactly 1 by 6. Clear? So you will see that using the concept of random experiment, we can imitate very interesting logic, okay, and implement this in program. Okay, let's make it a little more complicated. So suppose I am rolling 2 dice instead of 1 die. I am rolling 2 dice. So what is the probability that both of the dice out face is going to be 6? I am rolling 2 dice. What is the probability that I will get 6 in both of these dice? What is the probability? 1 by 36, right? Okay, so how can I write a program to imitate this process? It is exactly similar to this, but instead of 1 die, I need to do this experiment for 2 dice. So it is pretty simple. I in range range 10,000. Let's start with 10,000. Instead of 1 die, I am doing the experiment on 2 dice. So rand int in between 1 to 6, and then another die, rand int in between 1 to 6, and then I'm checking if d1 equal to 6 and d2 equal to 6, then counter equal to counter plus 1. Okay, basically I'm doing the same thing, but instead of 1 die, I'm doing it over 2 dice. Okay, and at the end, I'm printing the probability of finding 2 6 is countered by this. Okay, so it is showing us 0.0298. okay, so let's see what is the value of 1 by 36. 0.0278, 0.0298. 98. Okay, again if you start increasing the number, you will get even precise outcome 027. Okay, so that's how you can do different random experiment. Now another question is that, or another type of problems that you will encounter is that you need to generate a random number but not necessarily integer. Okay, here you are generating random numbers, but here you are generating random integers, right? But sometimes you need fractional number, you need to generate fractional random numbers, so in between 0 to 1. Okay, so let's see. So how can I generate fractional random numbers? That is a function called random. So let's see. For I in range of 10, I'm generating a random number in between 0 to 1 10 times. Okay, so that is a function called random. Okay, so random is showing me red underline because I didn't import this function. So from random, import random. Okay, this random function I am currently using. So now you can see that there is no red underline. All right, so this is going to be a rand number, and then you can print your random. Okay, that's it. So I'm generating a random number in between. So this will generate a random number in between 0 and 1. Okay, it is going to generate a random number in between 0 and 1. That's why this is fractional random number. So we'll see we're getting random numbers in between 0 to 1. Okay, and instead of writing these two lines, as you know that you can simply write from random import star. That is also going to work. This is also going to work. Okay, so from this understanding, if I ask you to generate a random number, not necessarily integer, random number in between 0 to 10, instead of 0 to 1, I'm saying to find out random numbers in between 0 to 10. How can you change your program?
We need to multiply by 100.
Yeah, multiply by 10, right? This random function generates a random number in between 0 to 10, 0 to 1. So if I want to generate random numbers in between 0 to 10, I need to multiply it by 10, right? So now we will see that it is going to generate random numbers in between 0 to 10. Clear? So in that way, you can scale your random number generation. So at this point, you know how to generate random numbers, how to do experiments regarding random numbers. Okay. All right. So let's do a very interesting experiment, very interesting and very useful experiment. Okay. So all of you know that the value of pi is 3.14, right? All of us know that the value of pi is 3.1. Okay. Let's learn a random experiment that is going to give the value of pi. Let's do a experiment, very interesting experiment. So suppose that is a square and there is a circle inside the square. Okay, and let's take any dimension. Let's start with any dimension. The square is d cross d, dimension d cross d. All right. Okay. Now suppose you are throwing arrows randomly in this space. Okay, there is a square of dimension d cross d, and there is a circle with diameter d. All right. Now suppose you are throwing some arrows randomly in this space. So what will happen if you throw arrows randomly? Some arrows will be inside this circle, Some arrows will be outside this circle but inside the square. Okay. Now, from this information, can you calculate the probability that your arrows will be inside the circle?
Would we just divide the area of the circle from the total area between the circle and the square?
Yes, excellent. Yeah. So the probability that you will get a hit. Okay, let's call that if your arrow is inside the circle, it's a hit. Okay. So probability of hit is the area of the circle divided by the area of the square. Right. So what is the area of a circle? Area of the circle is pi d square by 4. Right. We know that area of a circle is pi radius square. However, here d is the diameter. That means pi d by 2 square. That means pi d square by 4. Okay. So the area of the circle is pi d square by 4 divided by the area of the square. So what is the area of the square? Area of the square is d square. So the probability that your arrows will be somewhere inside the circle is nothing but area of the circle, which is pi d square by 4 divided by the area of the square, which is d square. So d square will cancel out. So that means the probability that your arrows will be inside the circle is pi by 4. Okay. So that's a very interesting result, right? So that means what I'm saying is that if you throw arrows randomly in this space, and if you conduct this experiment a very large number of times, then you can calculate P, right? Because P is nothing but the number of times you are getting a hit divided by the number of events. So you know P, and you know that P equal to pi by 4. So that means the value of pi is 4 into P. Okay. So that's a very interesting result, right? That means I can calculate the value of pi using a real experiment. Okay. All right. So let's implement this and check whether I can indeed get the right value of pi or not. All right. Okay. So let's write a program. Value of pi. Let's read some of the previous programs. Let's first. Okay. Now before going into the program, let's make this little bit simple to write the simplest possible program. Okay. So this concept is valid for any d. Right? D can be anything 1, 2, 5, because d is basically going to, d square is basically going to cancel out. So that means the outcome is independent of d. Right? You can start with any d. Okay. So for the sake of simplicity, I am assuming, or I will write a program where I'm going to assume that the center of the circle is 0, 0. Okay, the coordinate is 0, 0, and this coordinate is -1, -1. Okay, this is 0, 0. This is -1, -1. This is +1, -1. Okay, +1, -1. This coordinate is +1, +1. And this coordinate is -1, +1. Okay. All right. So that means I'm going to generate the random coordinates. Okay, I'm going to generate random coordinates. Random coordinates is equal to throwing the arrows randomly. Okay, each time I'm going to generate a random coordinates that falls in this space. Okay, that means each time I'm going to generate a random number or two random numbers x and y, where x is in between -1 to +1, and all y is also in between -1 to +1. So every time I'm going to generate two random coordinates, both are in between -1 to +1, and then I'm going to check whether this random coordinate is inside this circle or not. Okay. So let's imitate this example. So I need to generate random numbers. So from random import star. So I need to repeat this experiment several thousand times. So let's call it tries. The number of tries I am making, 10,000. Okay. And I need to count the number of hits. Hit means your arrow is inside the circle. So initialize hit to be 0. Every time I'm going to get a hit, I need to increment this hits value. So let's run this program, or let's write the loop. For I in range of tries, I need to generate two random number x and y. Basically, they are the coordinates, random coordinates. Okay, each of them are in between -1 to 1. Okay, so you have learned how to generate random numbers in between 0 to 1. Can you tell me how to generate random number in between -1 to 1? Basically, we need to scale it, right? So suppose R1 is the random number in between 0 to 1. So how can I scale it in between -1 to 1? So if R1 gives a random number in between 0 to 1, how can I write x in terms of R1? Basically, I need to scale R1 in between -1 to 1, right? R1 is currently in between 0 to 1. I need to scale it in between -1 to 1. How can I do so?
You could multiply it by 2 and then subtract 1.
Excellent. Yeah. So let's see what happens if I multiply by 2 and then -1. What will happen? I know that R1 is in between 0 to 1, right? So 2R1 is in between 0 to 2, right? So 2R1 -1 is in between -1 to 1, right? 2R1 -1 is in between -1 to 1, right? So that means if I do this operation, I will get a random number in between -1 to 1. Similarly, exactly in the same way, I need to get the value of y. So R2 equal to random, and then y equal to 2R2 -1. In this way, I can get two coordinates. All of these are in between -1 to 1. Okay. Now I need to check whether x and y is in between the circle. So what is the condition? Suppose you generate a random x and y, and the coordinate is, say, over here. How can we find out that whether this point is inside the circle or outside the circle? If this is xy, random x and random y, then it is inside the circle if x minus center square plus y minus center square is less than or equal to the radius square, right? So here radius is nothing but 1. I need to check whether x square plus y square is less than or equal to 1. Okay, if it is equal to 1, that means the point is on top of the circle. If it is greater than 1, then it is outside the circle, right? That is from the basic geometry. So that means I can write if x square plus y square is less than equal to 1. Okay, that means the point is inside the circle. Then I am saying hits equal to hits plus 1. And then that's it. The same experiment I am basically trying several times. And then I can calculate the probability. Probability is nothing but hits, number of hits divided by the number of tries, right? And then I know that if I get probability, then the value of pi is 4 into p. So value of pi, nothing but 4 into probability. Okay. Then I can print the approximate value of pi is value of. Okay. Let's see. Let's run this experiment and check. You'll see that the approximate value of pi is 3.1568. Very, very close to 3.1. Okay, if I increase the tries, you'll see 3.139. So very close to 3.1. Okay. So we'll see as I increasing the number, it is getting very close to 3.1. So using this, technique of generating random numbers, I can generate the value of pi by using a very interesting experiment. Okay, so this kind of technique is called Monte Carlo simulation. Monte Carlo simulation deals with random sampling, but it repeats this random sampling again and again and again, and at the end it gets the average to get a probability. Okay. Okay. So first, let's try to understand how basic encryption and decryption works using simple XOR function. Okay. All right. So suppose you want to send a message M to your friend. Okay. But your message is going through a channel that is not secured. So that means in the channel there are multiple eavesdroppers that are trying to intercept your message. Okay. So you're trying to send a message to your friend, but as it is going through an insecure channel, there are possibilities that others are also going to read your message. Okay. So to avoid your message being intercepted by others, typically the encryption and decryption mechanisms are used. So let me show you one simple form of encryption and decryption. So instead of sending the original message, suppose you are XORing with a key and producing a ciphertext, and the ciphertext is transmitted to the insecure channel. Okay, so whoever will get the ciphertext will not be able to understand what's there in your message, and at the receiver end, the receiver or your friend will get the ciphertext, and your friend will have the same key that is shared in between you and your friend. Okay, so your friend have the key, so he is going to XOR with the ciphertext to produce the message text. Okay, so the point is this XOR function has this peculiar property that if you XOR the message with the key, will produce the ciphertext, and if you XOR the ciphertext with the key, it will produce the original message. Okay, all right. So let's take a message, say 1011, and let's take a key. The length of the key will be identical to the length of the message. Okay. So let's say the key is say 0100, and then if I do bitwise XOR, then what shall I get? So let me just write down the truth table of the XOR function. So if A and B are two logical variables, Then let's see what is going to be the truth table of this XOR function. So if both A and B are 0, the XOR is going to be 0. If any of the A and B are 1, the XOR is going to be 1. And if both are 1, the XOR is going to be 0. Okay. So 0 XOR 1 is 1, 0 XOR 1 is 1, 1 XOR 0 is 1, 0 XOR 1 is 1. All right. So the cipher text will be transmitted to the channel. Now, whenever the receiver will get it, the receiver will also going to do another level of XOR with the key. So let's use the same key 0 1 0 0. So if I do C XOR K, I'm going to get the following. So 0 XOR 1 is 1, 0 XOR 1 is 1, 1 XOR 1 is 0, 0 XOR 1 is 1. So if you match this with the original message, you will see that you have got the original message at the receiver end. Okay. So whatever the message you wanted to transmit, your friend will be able to recover it successfully. Okay. So this XOR has this peculiar property that if you XOR the key with the original message, you will get the cipher text. And if you send the cipher text and then do another level of XOR with the key, you will get the original message. Okay. So this is the simplest form of encryption decryption mechanism, okay, or at least one of the simple form of encryption decryption mechanism. Clear? All right. So let me just show you that how we can implement this simple encryption decryption mechanism using Python program. All right. So let's open a file called encryption decryption.python. Let me just edit the configuration. Okay. So suppose I want to send a message that looks like this. So today is Thursday. Learning Python programming. All right. So this message, suppose we want to transmit through an insecure channel. Right? So what should I need to do first? First, I need to generate a random key that will be of equal length of the message. Okay, so that I can do character by character XOR or bit by bit XOR. All right. So first, the length of the message is going to be length of m, and then I need to produce a key that will be of length. Okay. So let me just initialize an empty string, and then I'm going to produce random characters. Okay. So I'm going to produce or I need to generate length number of random characters. All right. Okay. So while generating the random character, I first need to check the ASCII table. So what is an ASCII table? So this ASCII table records the different characters. So for example, A, B, C, D, E, F, all in capital letters as well as in small letters. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all this in the form of characters. And at the same time, all the other characters are listed in this ASCII table. All right. And all these characters has their corresponding ASCII value. Okay. So this ASCII value varies from 0 to 255. All right. So I need to generate a random ASCII value in between 0 to 255, and then I can convert it to its corresponding character. So every character has its corresponding ASCII values. For example, the ASCII value of A is 65, ASCII value of B is 67, capital A, capital B. Okay. Similarly, ASCII value of small a is 97, ASCII value of small b is 98, and so on. Right. So let's generate some random character using this ASCII table. So what I will do is that I will generate random integers in between 0 to 255, and then I'm going to convert it to its corresponding ASCII character. All right. So let's see how to do this. So I need to generate length number of characters, and then I'm going to append this to the key. All right. So as I said that I need to generate random integers in between 0 to 255. All right. So let's first generate this. So rand int in between 0 to 255. Okay. So this rand int is going to generate random integers. Now I need to convert that random integers to characters. Okay. So what is the corresponding function? The corresponding function is CHR. Okay. So this CHR function takes an integer and convert it to its corresponding ASCII character. Right. So here red int is giving a red underline because I need to import from the random package. Random import star. All right. So using this technique, I can generate a random key with the length equal to the message length. Okay. So let's print and check whether this random key is generated properly or not. So you can see that the random key is generated. That looks like this. Okay. And as whenever I am running different times, it is generating different random keys that consist of some random characters. Okay. So all these characters are part of this ASCII table. All right. Okay. So at this point, I have generated random key with a length equal to the message text. So my random key is generated. The next thing is to produce the ciphertext. So what is the technique to produce the ciphertext? As I have said that the ciphertext is message text XOR with the key. I have already generated the key. I have the message text, so I need to do XOR. Okay, so let's do that. So let's initialize an empty string C, and then for each and every character, I'm going to do XOR in between the key and the message. So for I in range of length, the ciphertext are C equal to C plus. So I need to do the message XOR the key. Okay. But here you need to notice that this m of I is in character format, right? M of I is a character. Similarly, key of I is also a character. So for doing an XOR, I need to first convert them from character to their corresponding ASCII value. Okay. So how to do this? The corresponding function is ORD. Okay. ORD will take the character and convert it to its ASCII value, which is in integer format. And after converting these characters to its integer format, then I can do the XOR operation. Okay, so I can do XOR on integers, correct? But as these are in character format, you convert it to its corresponding integer format. Now this is going to generate an integer, right? So that I need to convert it again to character format before appending it with the C. Okay, because C is ultimately a string. Okay, so this is going to be an integer. Okay, so I need to convert it to character before appending to C. Okay, so let's see how the ciphertext looks like. So you can see that the ciphertext. Okay, let's put it in the next line. All right. So you can see that the ciphertext looks like this. Okay, which has no connection with the, or it will be very difficult for anyone to interpret the original message from this ciphertext. Okay. If I run it different time, you see that different ciphertexts are getting generated. All right. So it is very difficult for anyone to interpret what's there in the actual message. And this ciphertext you are basically transmitting through your insecure channel. Okay. Now at your friend's end, suppose this ciphertext is reached. So now let's see how your friend is going to produce the original message from this ciphertext. Okay. So here let's initialize a string called recover and initialize this as an empty string. Okay. So as I have shown you that I need to do another level of XOR with the key to produce the recovered original text. Okay. So let's do that. So for I in range of length, recover equal to recover plus. So this ciphertext is again in string format or in character format, and the key is also in character format. So I need to first convert them to the corresponding integer format. So odd of ci XOR odd of I, and this entire expression will return an integer. So this out I need to convert it to the corresponding character format before appending with the recover text. All right. Let's see. Recovered message is let's see. If I run it, you can see that the recovered message is today is Thursday. We are learning Python programming. We are having fun. Okay. So from the ciphertext and the key, your friend is able to generate the original message. Okay. So this is one of the simple way you can implement an encryption and decryption. Okay. And you can change the message also. Say for example, tomorrow to run it, different key, different ciphertext is generated, but at the end of the day, you can generate the correct message. Okay. All right. So that's the one of the simple way to implement an encryption and decryption using this XOR function.